Right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we are going to talk about synapse. What is synapse? What are the types of synapse? What is synapse? As we know that our nervous system and muscular system, glandular system consist of million and million cells. When these neurons communicate with one another or communicate with the muscle cell, or these neurons communicate with the cells of the glands uh, with the help of the a specific junction, a specific site is called synapse. What is synapse? Synapse is the site where two neuron where two neuron communicate with one another, or neuron communicate with the muscle cell, or neuron communicate with the uh, glandular cell. Okay, what is synapse? Suppose this one is a neuron. When one neuron communicate with another neuron with a specific site is called synapse. One neuron communicate with another neuron with the help of synapse. When one neuron communicate with the muscle cells, this is the muscle cells. So this site is called synapse. When one neuron communicate with the glandular cell, this is the glandular cell. It is called synapse. So synapse is the site, is the communicating site where two neurons communicate with one another, or when one neuron communicate with the skeletal muscle cell, or when one neuron communicate with the glandular cell. So they make a specific site, a specific junction, which is called synapse. Nervous system, muscular system, and glandular system, so they communicate with one another with the help of the synapse. The main function of the synapse is to produce effect on the another cell. So this is cell number 1, this is the neuron cell number 1, this is neuron cell number 2. When I stimulate this area, then action potential is produced here, and the action potential is go forward. So when action potential is transmitted from this neuron to another neuron, this action potential is transmitted with the help of the synapse, with the help of a junction. So synapse is the transmitting junction between two neurons. Okay. Synapse is usually in the body. Synapse between two neurons is usually formed. Suppose this is neuron number 1, neuron number 2. When synapse is usually found between the axon and the dendrite. The axon of the one cells, the one neuron, and the dendrite of the another neuron. So this types of synapse is called axodendritic synapse. Axodendritic synapse are the synapse which is found between the axon of the one neuron and the dendrite of the another neuron. This is called axosynapse. This is the most common. This is the most common synapse in the body. Most common synapse in the body is the axodendritic synapse. When axon of one neuron, this is the axon of one neuron. When synapse on the cell body of the another neuron, this is another neuron. This is the cell body. This type of synapse is called axosomatic synapse. This is rarely case. This is a rarely case. Okay. Another types axoxanic synapse. Axoxanic. This is axoxanic synapse. When the axon of one neuron synapse and the axon of another neuron, this is called axoxanic synapse. This is a structural classification of the synapse, but the functional classification of synapse is the chemical synapse and electrical synapse. But this is the structural classification of synapse. This is the anatomical classification. This is also a rarely case. So there are three types of synapse on the basis of anatomy, on the basis of structure. Okay, this is the structure. These are the three structural classification of the synapse. Okay, but the functional classification of the synapse are of two types: chemical synapse and electrical synapse. What are these types? Two types. Number one, chemical synapse. What is chemical synapse? Chemical synapse is the site as the synapse where one neuron, this is neuron number one, this is the axon, affect the dendrite of another neuron with the release of a chemical substance which is called neurotransmitter. When one neuron communicates with another neuron by the releasing of a specific substance, the neurotransmitter, this type of synapse is called chemical synapse. There is a small junction, there is a small space between the axon and the dendrite. This is the axon, this is the axon terminal, while this is the dendrite. And the chemical synapse, there is a small junction, there is a small space which is called synaptic clefto. But in the electrical synapse, this axon is connected with the dendrite, which we discussed later. Okay, chemical synapse is the synapse which have a synaptic cleft, which have a small cleft, small space between the axon and the dendrite. And the chemical synapse, one neuron communicate with another neuron with the help of a releasing of neurotransmitter. How this phenomena occur? Okay, suppose this is a neuron, this is the terminal, this is the axon terminal. How message passed from one neuron? This is an excitatory response. How message passed from one axon to the another dendrite? Okay, this message is passed from with the help of the neurotransmitter. Suppose when I touch this area, there produce action potential. This action potential is go to the axon. Action potential is go to the axon. And when action potential is reached here, when action potential is reached here near the synaptic knob, this is the synaptic knob, this is the axon, these are the axonal terminal. The axonal terminal have a button-like structure, button-like structure at the end, which is called synaptic knob. Synaptic knob consists of two structure mainly: synaptic vesicle and the mitochondria. This is the mitochondria. When action potential is reached to the synaptic knob, when action potential is reached here, there are present some channel. These are the calcium. These are the voltage regulated calcium channel. When action potential is reached here, from this point up to this point, the calcium regulated channel is opened, and the calcium influx and calcium go inward. Calcium go inward. When calcium go inward, when many calcium go inward by the arrival of the action potential, then here this is the synaptic vesicle. The synaptic vesicle is covered by a membrane. This calcium produce some chemical changes in the membrane of the synaptic vesicle, and so the synaptic vesicle is fused here, and the neurotransmitter is released here. Okay, the synaptic vesicle when attached to this membrane. What is this membrane? This is the what is this neuron called? This neuron is called presynaptic neuron. What is presynaptic neuron? Presynaptic neuron are those neuron. What is presynaptic neuron? Presynaptic neuron are those neuron uh, which is aimed by the axon, which give message to the another neuron. So this neuron is called presynaptic neuron, while this neuron is called postsynaptic neuron. What is postsynaptic neuron? Those neuron which receive message from another axon is called postsynaptic neuron. This membrane is called presynaptic membrane. The membrane is here is called the presynaptic membrane, while the membrane is called this membrane is called the postsynaptic membrane. When calcium go inward by the arrival of action potential, this due to the some chemical changes produced in the membrane of the synaptic vesicle. The synaptic vesicle is fused with the presynaptic membrane, and the neurotransmitter is released here. There are present million and million of synaptic vesicle, and one synaptic vesicle consists of thousands the neurotransmitter. When neurotransmitter is released here, these are the neurotransmitter. This space is called synaptic cleft. Synaptic cleft. When neurotransmitter is released to the synaptic cleft, then the neurotransmitter is attached with its own receptor on the postsynaptic membrane. This is the receptor on the postsynaptic membrane. So the neurotransmitter is attached here. When the neurotransmitter is attached here, this is the excitatory neurotransmitter. When excitatory neurotransmitter is attached here, it produces action potential in the postsynaptic membrane, and here, so the action potential is produced here, which go forward toward the next neuron cell. So it produces action potential. This is the here you see that how message is passed from one neuron to another neuron. This is the excitatory neurotransmitter, which is released by the presynaptic neuron and produce action potential on the postsynaptic neuron. So in this way, message is passed from one neuron to another neuron and the chemical synapse. Okay. This is the chemical synapse. This is the transmission of impulse from presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron. Okay. Another type is the electrical synapse. This is the electrical synapse. Electrical synapse. What is electrical synapse? Electrical synapse is the types of synapse which have a specific junction. This is neuron number 1, neuron number 2. There present a small space. This is called a chemical synapse because the message is transferred from one neuron to another neuron with the help of a chemical, which is called neurotransmitter. With the help of chemical, here the message is passed from one neuron to another neuron. This is the direction of the message. Message is passed from one neuron to another neuron with the help of electrical activity. This is not the chemical activity. Here the chemical are not released. When I stimulate this area, action potential is produced here. When I stimulate this area, sodium goes start inward. Sodium goes start inward and potassium go outward. So When I stimulate this area, sodium start go inward and potassium start go outward. So the message is go in forward direction in the palm up wave. This is the direction of the message. When message is reached here, there the neurotransmitter is released. But in the electrical synapse, when the message is reached here, this is the current, this is the sign, this is the impulse. When impulse is reached here, no chemical is released here. So there the impulse go directly from one neuron to another neuron. The impulse go directly. So this is the gap junction. This is the gap junction, small connectivity, small membranal connectivity between the two neurons. So this is the past transferring synapse. Well, there is occurs some delay because delay occur due to the release. Here the delay occur by three way. Delay occur by the release of neurotransmitter, by the calcium inward, and the attachment of the neurotransmitter with the receptor. So there is a some delay occur. Well, this is the past. This is the past mechanism. This is the past impulse mechanism. Well, this is the slow impulse mechanism. Okay, this is the electrical synapse. So these are the two types of the synapse. Okay,